Welcome back, Cracked fans, to another edition of the Cracked Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. As you listeners know, we have been fortunate enough here at Cracked Rackets to bring on a few sponsors to help support us in our journey to continue to expand coverage of our beloved sport of tennis. And in particular, one of the sponsors we are so grateful to be joining teams with, our friends at Diadem. As you know, they're the presenting sponsor of our Mini Break podcast. Their racket and string technology on the forefront of all innovations going on right now in the game of tennis. And that's why we are so thrilled to bring on the podcast today one of the co-founders of Diadem Sports, AJ Bartlett. AJ, welcome to the Cracked Interviews podcast.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here and be a part of Cracked Rackets and kind of help, sponsor and get more of the great content that you guys are putting out there. We're excited to see more people in the space and getting as much, tennis content out to the fans as possible.
Oh, believe me when I say the pleasure is all ours. I mean, it's not every day guys like Carousel, guys like Sekou Bangor, we can say, hey, we're on the same team as the pros. And so we really appreciate you guys taking the time to support what we're doing. And we're really appreciative that we have you on, because I think our fans have really grown interested in what's going on at Diadem. So for those of them who don't know about the background, can you tell them a little bit about how Diadem came to be?
Yeah, of course. So Diadem started back in 2015. We came out with our flagship string, Solstice Power. It's what we've been known for. It's what we've built the company off of. And that actually started about a year or two before that. Myself, I'm a co-founder. We're junior tennis players, college tennis players, played on the tour a little bit. That's where we met and became buddies and friends while we were out playing some futures in Mexico. And we stayed tight through tennis, and we kind of had this idea of that we wanted to get into the business side of tennis, and what was there, thought there were some opportunities, in the market to create something that was better, create more spin, something that we could, be more performance enhancing and that players would like. And so that's kind of where we started down that rabbit hole of figuring out what could we do to make it better. And we started testing, different types of shapes and formulas and things like that. And it was quite the experience. It took us quite a little while to get involved and get things going. But once we kind of figured it out, we had things rolling by 2015, and it's been going ever since.
And I do want to talk about the Nova 100, the Elevate 98, of course, but you talk about your personal experience with rackets and just being on the pro tour. And can you sort of talk about, I mean, tennis players understand if you play tennis, one of the most personal decisions you can make is what racket you play with. But can you talk about how it's not just the frame, it's the strings, right? And as a professional, how why every little, pound of string tension or whatever it is can make the difference?
Yeah, definitely. As far as the string goes, I mean, I think there's just so many different characteristics that you can get based on your racket, right? You're going to have a different experience with the string in a 98 square inch frame as to a 100 square inch frame, or to you at 40 pounds than at 45 pounds. Different stiffnesses within each one of those rackets. You could have a 98 inch frame that's a very stiff racket and one that's more flexible racket. You're going to get complete different responses and feels between each one of those, even with the same exact string. So it really is that tinkering process of taking the time to really try it a few different times in a few different ways. I know when I was playing a bit, you're constantly kind of tinkering around trying to figure out what works best, and it's not just a one-time thing. You really have to kind of spend some time at it. I mean, you look at these guys that they go and play a tournament and they're going from Indian Wells to Miami, and they're adjusting string tensions by a couple of pounds, and they'll go out and have 3 or 4 strung up at a range of 1 to 2 pounds just to kind of dial in where they're at based on, conditions, humidity, speed of the court. And so it definitely is a big part of it, especially when you're getting up at that level where, every, millimeter counts.
Yeah, that's, I think, the best point is that because all of you, anyone who's played, all of you, I include you in this group because you are a former professional player, but anyone who's playing on the professional ranks, they're going to be really good at tennis. And so you're right, all of these margins, all of these matches decided by a couple of millimeters here and there. And so I really appreciate your point there. The difference is you're playing on the slow courts of Indian Wells. It's essentially a clay court, and then you're speeding things up a little bit in that humidity in Miami. It's a completely different experience. And I do think, for the casual tennis player, you're going to your same local club every week, so the changes, the variance in conditions, not going to be that great. But string tension, things like that, really do matter. And so I'm curious for you guys. You talk about that process for you taking a couple of years to develop your racket and string technology. What were you guys looking for as you began the developmental process?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I mean, when we started it, like I said, the product came out in 2015, and we did about a year and a half of, research and development as we were, creating the string. And I think, the open string patterns and spin was becoming the big thing. I mean, I think that was really where we saw the game going more so, as everybody's looking for more spin. I mean, more spin you get, basically the more control you have, because you can keep dipping the ball into the court. And so for us, I mean, that's where we really found, shaped strings. We noticed the extra grip and bite that you could grab from them was substantial. And so that's where we kind of really started tinkering around with different types of shapes and try to figure out what we felt to be the most spin enhancing. And that's where we came through with like our proprietary design and our Star Core technology, which is the most aggressively shaped string on the market. And it's utilized in a couple of our strings, both our Solstice Power, our flagship string, and then another string that we have as well called Elite XT, which is a little bit more control oriented.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the products then. You got into them a little bit there. In particular right now, I know the big rackets, you guys are pushing the Nova 100, the Elevate 98. Can you talk a little bit about both of those rackets and, the differences between the two?
Yeah, of course. So, we have the two rackets. I mean, when we came out with it, we wanted to keep it pretty simple, as we feel like, especially for the majority of the players that we're looking at, or playing with similar rackets in the 98 and 100 square inch frame. The 98, the Elevate, you're looking at a more of a control player frame. So players looking for precision, lots of spin. Definitely going to find that in the Elevate racket. That also comes in a tour model as well, which is a slightly heavier version. And that's been one of our more popular frames on the tour, at the college level, even some of our top juniors getting into that frame. It's definitely been a very popular model. And then when you're looking into the Nova racket, that's definitely going to be more of your player. I call it like an enhancement frame. It's a player power frame. It's still a player stick, but definitely going to get you a lot more pop than, say, the Elevate. You're going to get a lot more penetration through the court, a lot more easy power, and that comes in a few different weight classes. We have it in a light version, a regular version at 10.5 ounces, and then we actually have it in an extended racket, which is about a half inch longer and definitely going to give you a lot more reach, and an extra, 5 to 7 miles an hour on that serve. So definitely a big plus there.
Yeah, and can you explain for players, because I think when a lot of people, especially when they're young, if they don't have experience in the game of tennis, they're making their choices about rackets, they'll say, hey, and I mean, look, I went through this phase, I can be honest, where it's like, I see Federer using the K Factor, I want to use that racket, or I see Nadal using, whatever racket he wants to use from his company. We won't even say the name of those companies because we are loyal to Diadem here on this podcast. But why is that not what people should be doing? Can you explain, again, why that's not the decision they should be making?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, I think we've all kind of gone through that, right? I mean, that's the whole marketing story behind why these companies do that and have these guys. I mean, they make great rackets, but I mean, the biggest thing is that, these guys typically aren't using those rackets. They're using a customized version of that. And so, there's definitely a lot of opportunities for other rackets out there that are probably a little bit more suited, for your game, and just kind of figuring it out. I mean, I think it's something where, having that conversation with, your coach, your stringer, going through the processes of like, what type of player are you, and what can you, benefit, and finding something that can you maybe a little more suited to your game than, say, a Roger Federer autograph edition racket, which, isn't a great racket. But I mean, even myself, I had a tough time playing it with this, as heavy as that racket was and where it's at. And I see so many young juniors playing with the racket that probably isn't best suited for them just based on a weight. I mean, they're putting them at such a disadvantage, I feel, but that's just, where that's at. And I get why people want to be with the racket that Federer uses, but I think that sometimes it's a little overplayed by some of these kids or people that, that probably have a better racket out there for them that can help them perform a lot better than they are with that current racket.
Yeah, look, I'm 24 years old, and the reason I say that is that racket's still too heavy for me. Like, I just can't do it. It's too stiff, and all of these – I just feel like you have to be so good to use a racket like that, and I think that is something that, juniors, players throughout, even recreational players, you don't need to be stubborn about things like that. Use the racket that brings out your best tennis. I'm not going to say, again, I used a graphite type racket for a lot of my life, and that was because it was best for me, not because it looked great out there. I looked like and I probably have the body language of someone who appears they were born in the 80s, and that's fine because it brought out my best tennis game. Now, something I continue to struggle with, picking the string and figuring out what string is best for me, how frequently I should be changing strings, what tension I should even go with. I think that's a big problem for casual tennis players. I think my whole life I was just told, yeah, you're going to use 59 pounds. And I was just like, okay, sure. But can you explain again, why the tension, why different strings matters, what they can draw out of your game?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at it is you got to kind of get educated a little bit, right? And making sure that you're talking with somebody that's up to date on the latest technologies and things that are there. I mean, you're looking at string tensions these days. I mean, there's very few people stringing their rackets in the high 50s and 60s. Just you're looking at the pro players, they're definitely low tension is where it's gone because they're looking for the strings to move, especially with the polyester based strings that they're using. They want the strings to snap back and go into it. I mean, most people's conception of like a polyester string is that they never move, which is actually kind of the complete opposite. They actually move, but they snap back, and that's what helps generate a lot of that spin. So generating more snapback is going to generate more spin. So you've seen these guys definitely go lower in tension. I mean, there's guys playing in the high 30s, low to mid 40s, and as high as into the 50s, low 50s and things like that. But I think when you look at if you were to take a consensus of the pro players, they're definitely in that lower tension of what the range of tension they're playing at. And so when you start looking at maybe a little bit softer strings like some of the multi-filament synthetic guts and nylons, you could definitely see it maybe just because they're already such a powerful string, increasing that tension. But, I think that you shouldn't look to always try to gain control by just tightening up the strings. I think finding a nice, loose, comfortable tension and making those adjustments on the court to where it's much easier on your elbow, your shoulder, you're hitting thousands of balls. You want to try to have it as comfortable as set up as possible in your racket so that you're not creating the tennis elbow issues and other injuries and things like that.
For our team at Diadem, Solstice Power, Elite XT, Flash, Evolution, and Impulse strings available. Can you explain the differences between them and, which, depending on your style game, which one you should maybe go with?
Yeah, so as we mentioned a little bit earlier, Solstice Powers are, flagship string, kind of what the company is based off of and how we've propelled this company forward. That uses our Star Core technology, the most aggressively shaped string on the market, rated as one of the highest spin potential strings out there. So definitely something that, even from a recreational level, if you're playing with, more heavy topspin, a more modern style game, you're definitely going to see a lot of benefit from that. It's on the softer poly side, so that's what makes it, such a great string. Typically a lot of the polys out there are quite stiff, so it's a good option of spin, comfort, and feel for a polyester-based string. Then you're looking at a couple of other polys that we have with Elite XT and Flash. So if you're still looking in that polyester range, definitely some good options there. A little bit more control-oriented, not as lively as the Solstice Power. But what's interesting when you're looking at the majority of players, and I'm sure a lot of the players that are listening to this podcast, is there's some strings out there like our Evolution string, which was rated in Tennis Industry Magazine last year as one of the top rated strings of all time, and it's a very soft, solid core string. So it's not a polyester based string, it's a nylon based string. And what's unique about it is we designed it to be able to withstand the star points of our Solstice Power. And so it's able to be really hybrids well with that string. And so I think, something that's kind of underutilized by a lot of recreational players is is hybriding strings, putting some polyester in there to kind of help, generate some of the spin and control and feel that you're looking for, but making sure that we're still softening it up enough that, we can make it comfortable. You still have great feel around the net. And so that evolution string has been something that, we've found to be very good with the Solstice Power string. It's been enormous in like our growth. A lot of tennis shops across the country have kind of been pushing it exclusively as their go-to cross string for many of other polyester strings, not just Diadem. So that evolution string has been a really good go-to for us, and something that we designed and implemented as we wanted to create something kind of new and unique. And so that string is going to be a great option for your players looking for a softer, more comfortable string. Can also be played in a full bed as well if you're more like beginner intermediate looking for just something soft and comfortable as well. Impulse going to be like your multi-filament string, similar to like your NXTs, Technofiber, X1 biphases, Babolat XLs, things like that. Just a very soft, comfortable string. That basically you're looking at about 1,800 little fibers intertwined together to create this multi-filament. So for somebody looking for just a soft, easy string on your arm, that's going to be your go-to.
I love it. And again, it's that you cover all of the bases at Diadem. Any type of player can find a string without a doubt here. And it's not just the rackets and strings. Dalton, our CEO, walked in the other day in a beautiful Diadem hoodie, and I was like, dude, are you holding out on me? Like, we were doing a hoodie order and you didn't tell me. Because it's not just the rackets and strings, right? There's apparel as well.
Yeah, we have some apparel out there. We have some nice dry fit, short sleeve, long sleeve, some hoodies. I think I sent a couple of hoodies, so he might be holding out on you. He might have an extra, and he might have given away somewhere. You better go watch out for him.
Not the first time he's pulled garbage like that, I'll just say, to say the least. No, I mean, it all looks good. It's part of the Diadem deal, and as I mentioned earlier, I believe it's not just Carousel, and it's not just Sekou Bangor. Other pros is right, buying into this Diadem product.
Yeah, we got a lot of guys, we're kind of building it from the ground up. We're working with a lot of college teams. We got a lot of guys between, 400 and 1,000 and ATP using our rackets, strings, and in different combinations as well, too. So, we're growing a lot. We're seeing, with the new rackets that we launched, or that are launching next month, we've definitely seen a big increase in pro players very interested in our rackets. More top D1 universities very interested in testing out our rackets. We're getting a lot more inbound calls because of guys like you mentioned, Sekou Bangor, Carousel, guys like Felix Corwin, Alex Lebedev, guys that were top D1 college players, especially in their programs, and top 30 NCAA. I mean, people are definitely recognizing these guys are playing with these sticks. And so we've been getting a lot more inbound calls from a lot of players, and we're also working with a number of pro players, kind of developing some rackets for them as well, doing some customization, weight balance stuff. I think one thing that people don't really understand is when you're looking to switch over a top player, let's talk about a top 100 player, there's a pretty long process that goes into it. It's just like, oh, hey, I want to use your rackets tomorrow. Does any of these, does this feel good? There's a real testing process because you're talking about guys that have typically used the same sort of racket for maybe a decade, right? They have a style and spec that they're looking for. And so it's kind of like a process as you try to, tinker your rackets into what they do. And so, there's definitely a few players out there that we're working with that I can't really discuss, but, to try to get our name out there at a little bit the higher ranks in the Grand Slams and things like that, as the rest of our team is, kind of grassroots and coming up the ranks. That we're definitely, tied into right now, and we're pretty excited about and looking to kind of continue to grow that.
No, it's awesome. I'll say this. If you need a test subject to be like, hey, let's create a tennis racket for just the most average player out there, I'm your guy.
All right.
Like, you're like, hey, we just need a racket for the average Joes. It'll, you've got the Elevate, you've got the Nova, and then we'll have the Gruskin. And it's just perfect.
I can't see of a better racket than that. Let's get it going. It's got a good ring to it.
Yeah, the only problem is because the color schemes for you guys are so beautiful right now. That Elevate blue, But the Gruskin would have to just be hideous because it'd have to match its owner.
Come on.
And so
we can find some different, splashes of color. We can throw it on there to match it if you want. Whatever you want.
A Hot Wheels orange is what I'm looking for.
Ooh, that's what the tennis market's been missing. We haven't seen any orange out there for a while.
That's what I'm saying. You got to, again, we're zigging where everyone else is zagging. But I love it. And again, so appreciative for not only just the fresh perspective. It's so clear you guys at Diadem are invested in getting, the best products, the best strings and rackets out there for, it's not just the pros, for average players as well, like myself. And so for our fans out there who want to continue to support you, they know our promo code CR50. But can you tell them where they can find all of your stuff?
Yeah, go ahead and check us out at diademsports.com. We have a comprehensive website with pretty much anything you need: racket, strings, grips, balls, clothing. Definitely give us a check out. And as Alex had mentioned, our rackets, as we were saying, they're performance rackets, but, our new technology that we design in this latest generation of racket, it utilizes our new internal structure. Our Diadem FS technology has two different types of foam injection, a carbon fiber rib system inside of it that is helping stabilize the racket and really increasing the response, feel, and power. And so this is a technology that was really designed for all levels of players to really understand the feel and comfort of it. As most rackets are hollow inside, and I think it's something that people really recognize. So you're getting a lot more vibration and feedback through the racket than what we've designed here. And this is where I think the average recreational player would see a huge benefit in trying something that we have with our new technology that's unlike anything else that's out there on the tennis market.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. And again, diademsports.com, the promo code CR50 for 50% off. And we appreciate you giving our CR listeners a chance to make things a little bit easier on your pocket. And why wouldn't you go to Diadem at this point? We say it all the time. If it's good enough for the pros, it certainly is good enough for us. AJ, thank you so much for taking the time to talk through your Diadem rackets, string technology. Again, we are so grateful for all of your support of our Cracked Rackets adventures. You have a little bit of time for a rapid fire? Give our listeners a chance to learn a little bit more about you?
Let's do it.
All right, let's end with a rapid fire. Westoff, give me a rapid fire sound effect, please. All right, let's start with some non-tennis. I know you are some non-professional tennis, some AJ Bartlett related questions. I know you are a former college tennis player yourself. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I played at a Division II school in Hawaii. We were a top 4 team in the country. The year and a half that I played there, I played number 1 there. So it was a good opportunity. It was good. It was good fun. We had a good, solid team. Should have had a chance at that national title, but didn't get it done. So it was tough.
No, I like it. Have you seen all of the different rule changes that have gone on in college tennis since? I'm sure you're well aware of them.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit.
So your thoughts on the no ad scoring?
I get the concept of like speeding things up, but I think it kind of takes away from what tennis is all about, figuring it out, battling it out. And so, I think it takes away from you can add some average fans, but you're taking away from what people really love about tennis is the battling on the court, understanding how am I going to figure out my opponent. I'm never out of it. It's never 1 point away. Like I can battle back. And so I'm a kind of like I'm more like 70-30 for like ad scoring. I mean, it's just that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think there is something to the thrill of the deuce points, right? That decisive point. It definitely gets the fans engaged. It provides tense moments built in. But no, it's a different form of tennis. There's no denying that. It's not the same stuff you're seeing at the Grand Slams. Your thoughts on team tennis in general? You think that's the way the sport's moving?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the way it's moving. I mean, I think there's, exciting elements about it. You look at like the ATP Cup, and some of these guys had the opportunity to play down there. One of our guys played for Moldova, Alex Kozbanov, so that was a pretty cool experience for him. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, it brings in a different mentality for the sport. I don't know if I could see there being a lot more team events. I mean, I think it adds good camaraderie amongst the players. You look at all the college guys. I mean, most people that were on a college tennis team, they're like, they're buddies for life. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of benefits to it. But is the sport really going that way? I can't say that it is.
No, that's fair. It's certainly you take notice because we're very invested in college tennis here at Cracked Rackets. But yeah, with the the Laver Cups, the ATP Cups, obviously Davis Cup, Fed Cup continuing to be what they are, and the innovations going on in those different formats. It's just an interesting thing to know. World team tennis, of course, as well. I'm curious because you played team tennis. You talked about that camaraderie. Playing on a team versus being on the road. Like I imagine when you're playing those futures in Mexico, obviously you ended up meeting your future business partner, but I imagine it gets lonely out there.
Oh yeah, I think that's the number one thing that people are dealing with is trying to figure your pathway through the future and challenger circuit. You got some buddies and people that you're with traveling around on that. So I definitely think that when you look at all the other professional sports, having a team that you're traveling with, people that are looking out for your best interest. It's like you got buddies on tour, but at the same time you're competing against them every day, trying to fight for those same top 100 spots out there. So it's they're your friend, but it's always you have your guys that you're rooting for, people that you're good buddies, but at the same time you're still all competing for that same couple of spots.
No, of course. Yeah, it's what makes pro tennis so interesting. Every match is its own different adventure. For you, all right, being on the road, going to all these different places, the weirdest place you've ever had to string your own racket?
Weirdest place I ever had to string my own racket. Been a lot of weird places. But I've never, because when I'm in a lot of these weird places, I didn't have the opportunity to string my own racket. So I'm trying to think, like I've been to Africa. I was in Senegal playing some futures there, getting some rackets strung. I've definitely had some weird string jobs though, where I've come out and there's been like a 6 foot long piece of racket and string still tied to my, like I pulled it out for a match. I remember I was like in the beginning of the third set match in Ecuador, and I pulled my racket out of the plastic bag, and there's a 6 foot long piece of string still tied to the knot. Like they didn't cut the knot, so I couldn't even play with the racket. I had to like send it back, and I had to play with like a broken string for one point. It was quite a bizarre thing, but that's probably the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me as far as stringing or string jobs and playing on the tour.
No, I love it. That's people don't realize the week in, week out. You're cracking strings every week, maybe every match, depending on what type of player you are. The stringing, all of the constant racket work, as you mentioned at the beginning, that's half of the battle in pro tennis, making sure you have your equipment up and ready to go for this stuff. And it's a lot harder than it sounds. But all right, my last question to you. Our name is Cracked Rackets. I'm sure there are moments when you're traveling when you have gotten frustrated. So, AJ, the last time you cracked a racket?
Oof. Those were my junior days. That was rough. I went through a lot of different companies' rackets. I was everybody's least favorite person to sponsor because I was cracking a lot of rackets back in the junior days. I want to say that the last racket I cracked would have been maybe like one of the Indian Wells pre-qualies. I was like in the semifinals, and I think I snapped one racket as I played a really good match, and I lost in straight sets, but I was close. But I think that was the last time I played. It was a number of years ago. That's like a decade. That's dating me. I don't play much competitive tennis anymore, so I don't get too upset. But lots of yelling, but not too many cracked rackets anymore. I guess I can afford. This is the first time in my life I can actually afford to crack rackets. I'm not doing it anymore, so I don't know if that. I guess I got to get back out and start competing because now I can afford it. I can put as many rackets in my bag as I need. I just walk to the warehouse and grab a couple more.
That's what I'm saying. Word on the street though is that a Diadem racket's indestructible.
That's what I've heard. I got to go test it right now. Now that you bring that up, I actually haven't tested that recently, so I need to get out there and maybe throw a couple elevates down on the ground, see what we got.
Oh, I love it. Well, if you do, be sure to send us the video so we can post that as our cracked racket of the week.
You got it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, AJ, again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat. And seriously, thank you for all of your continued support for our team at Cracked Rackets. One more time for our listeners out there, where can they find all of your gear?
Check us out at diademsports.com.
Awesome. AJ, thank you so much. Take care. And anytime you want to come on, please, we'd love to have you.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Yeah, let's do it again soon. We'll get some throw me in on one of those commentary deals. Come on, I want to do some play-by-play.
Look, I'm down. I should have been repping a Diadem sweater during the play-by-play.
I guess we know who we got to talk to about that. Dalton, get him on here.
Well,
can we call him? Can we get him on the phone right now? No.
No, he would big time us. That's what we've learned from this. But no, seriously, AJ, take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good one. Thanks so much.